If you have an overactive mind and you are not doing things on an everyday basis to control it, to manage it, well, then your mind and your brain is going to become your worst friend. I have a very, very overactive mind. It became my worst enemy, essentially, because anytime I would try to do anything, anytime I want to talk to someone, put myself out there in any form or way, my mind will always, always stop me. And I would just spend hours and hours thinking about conversations, thinking about situations that were going to come up, and just thinking. And if you have even remotely close to an overactive mind, you just know how exhausting that is. It is so exhausting to have an overactive mind. But the good thing here is that there is so much that you can do to control it, to manage it, and it's all about making sure that you have daily habits in place that help you manage that overactive mind. Because if you don't, if you let your mind run wild, it's just going to make your life so much worse. It's going to exhaust so much of your energy. So you really want to take some of these habits that I'm sharing with you seriously, because these are habits that I have tried and tested over the past 10 years of working on my mental health. These are habits that I've tried and tested with my patients. And I've seen that time and time again, when we do these small, consistent things on an everyday basis, we're able to manage that overactive mind in a really healthy way. And the best part about this is that your mind goes from being your worst enemy, your worst friend, to being your best friend. And it wasn't until I learned how to truly calm my overactive mind that I became literally best friends with my mind. And now my mind and my brain is my greatest asset instead of the thing that holds me back from living the life of my dreams. If you're new to this channel, my name is Dr. Bisley Natley. I'm a cognitive behavioral therapy certified naturopathic doctor, and I'm currently doing my master's in counseling psychology. And so I am going to get my registered therapy license in the next few years. I'm super excited about. And I have helped hundreds and hundreds of people rewire their brain naturally. This is something that I have also done myself. I used to struggle with chronic depression and anxiety that got so bad that I ended up in the hospital because of it at one point in my life. Since then, I have been waking up every single day working on my brain health, and I am like the first-hand example of what it's like to actually rewire your brain. And that's why I'm so excited you're here watching this video, because if you have that overactive mind, know that you can very much rewire it. Your brain is building new cells, new connections every single day. It's all about honing down on the few habits and strategies that are really going to support you in the long run and doing them consistently. And with that being said, let's get into it. So habit number one, this is honestly the most transformational thing that's helped me to quiet an overactive mind. Yes, you've heard it probably many times before, but it's meditating. I remember when I was really struggling with my brain health in my late teens and early 20s, my mom, God bless her, was always looking for ways. To this day, she's always looking for ways to help me, okay? She'll like see the gray hairs on my head and she'll be like, oh my God, you need to try this oil and that and this. And this is why I love her so much. So she was meditating for a few years before that. And when she saw me really struggling with my mental health, she was like, you need to go meditate. And you know, of course, like every single teenager, young person, whenever their parents say something, what do they say? They're like, you don't know anything. Like, be quiet. I don't want to meditate. I hate this. I know what I'm doing. Even though I was like struggling so much. And so she actually put me in this like youth meditating group. And so it was a bunch of people in their late teens, early 20s. And essentially it was like a 6 to 8 week program. And so we would meet, I forgot now, maybe it was once a week or maybe it was a few times a week. But essentially we were meeting minimum at least once a week. And we would just sit and like meditate. So imagine at like, 18, 19, you're like having to sit and meditate for like an hour or two at a time, which is a lot. That was my first step into meditation. And to this day, I'm so thankful and grateful that my mom enrolled me in that program. If you're a parent watching this and if you have young kiddos, get them to start meditating at an early age. It's such a beautiful practice, and for a number of reasons, right? Because one, it forces us to kind of really sit down and do nothing. How many of us ever do that? We're always like one thing after the next thing after the next thing. We're like constantly distracting ourselves on our devices. And so to actually sit down and to do nothing, that on its own gives our brain the space to breathe, gives our mind space to breathe. And I get it. I get that when you have an overactive mind, that's the last thing you want to do, because so many of us who have an overactive mind, I am friggin' guilty of this. We love to overpack our schedule. We love to overpack it because our mind is so overactive that sitting with it feels so uncomfortable. And the fact that you're unable to actually sit in quiet and in silence with your overactive mind only gives it more power over you. You're just training yourself more to be like, it's scary for me to sit with my thoughts. And so when you start to retrain your brain and when you start to become comfortable with your thoughts, you're retraining your brain and telling your brain that it's safe for me to sit with my mind. It's safe for me to sit with these thoughts. These thoughts don't have power over me because I have power over them. And you do that by sitting with them and being with them. And that's one of the other reasons why meditation is just so powerful. And then the other thing too is that when you meditate, it forces you to turn inward. We live in such a distracted world, and our focus is constantly outwards. It's constantly about achieving that goal, doing well at work, doing this for this person, looking at what's happening on social media. And we're just so disconnected from our internal selves. And when you are deeply disconnected with your internal self, it's naturally going to make your mind be more overactive. And so the more that you can kind of start to sit in silence with your mind, the more comfortable you can become with it, the less power and control it'll have over you. And what you'll start to realize, especially when you do proper diaphragmatic breathing, proper breathing from your belly, and when you're able to kind of calm your nervous system response down, you'll start to see how much more power and control you have over your overactive mind. In the beginning, it would literally take me 30 to 40 minutes of meditation to try to calm and quiet down my overactive mind. Now, I can do it within like 10 breaths. Sometimes all it takes is just one breath because I have just trained my mind so much that when we practice belly breathing, when we practice deep diaphragmatic breathing, we're getting calm, we're getting quiet, we're looking inwards, and my brain knows that. And the practice that I've really implemented with meditating specifically over these past few months that I feel like has made such a massive difference in how I'm feeling about myself and really quieting my overactive mind is I'll do 3 10-minute meditations throughout the day. One I'll do in the morning when I wake up. One I'll do in the middle of the day at some point, usually it's either before lunch or maybe like 1 or 2 hours after lunch. And then the last one I'll do at the end of the day. And doing this practice I've been doing it for about like 3 months now. It has made the biggest shift in my mental health, my well-being, and it's so simple. So simple. And, sometimes I will do a guided meditation, but then other times I will just, sit there for 10 minutes and I will just, take belly breaths in and out, or I'll just sit there and be with my thoughts. The more that I do this practice, the more that I'm able to check in with myself. The more that I check in with myself and look at who am I showing up as? What is the intention that I want to set for myself? The more power and control I've had over my mind. I've been meditating for over 10 years now, and I'm going to release a video soon of the 10 lessons I've learned with 10 years of meditating. I truly feel like it's within these past 3 to 4 months of me just really sitting down and doing this meditation three times a day for 10 minutes. That is what's made like the biggest shift in how I feel. Like change happens so fast when you finally stop being scared of your mind. Seriously. You're doing so much right now to avoid sitting in your mind, to avoid sitting with yourself. And if you just sat down with yourself in silence, and if you committed to this practice, even just commit to it for 30 days, and you will not recognize yourself because I saw that shift within myself. And if 10 minutes seems like too much, maybe just start with 5 minutes at a time and work your way up from there because it's so transformational when you give your mind the space to breathe. When you become comfortable with it, you'll notice over time how much quieter and quieter it gets and how much faster deep breathing pulls you back into a state of calm and peace and ease. So this daily meditation thing just really has to be a must. Daily habit number 2 that helps to really quiet an overactive mind is to do emotional check-ins with the parts of yourself that are showing up. So this strategy specifically comes from something called internal family systems therapy. I'm not going to dive into that therapy, and honestly, I could make a whole other video on this. I really learned more about it from Gabrielle Bernstein's book, Self-Help. I plan on doing a little summary of that book because truly that book was just so transformational. And I want to make that video, honestly, so that I can even just direct my patients to it for them to watch it. So in internal family systems therapy, it's essentially about parts work. And what it talks about is that you have different parts of yourself. There's protector parts and firefighter parts, and these parts are all just coming out to help you you and support you. And one of the reasons why I love this therapy is because essentially what it talks about is that like all parts of you are great parts. And I find that so many of us, when we struggle with our brain health, we have such hatred for our anxious parts, for that overactive mind part. Instead of hating that part, it's learning to love it, to support it, and to give that part what it actually needs. Because when you start to give these parts what they actually desire and need, what you start to notice is that these parts have way less power and control over you, and instead you have power and control over them. And now you're just not automatically acting on these parts, you're being conscious and making sure you're showing up in alignment with who you actually want to be. An example of what I'll do throughout the day is when I notice my mind being really overactive, or when I notice, some sort of uncomfortable emotions coming up, I'll take a second and I'll take a few deep breaths, right? So again, breathing in the belly, I'll close my eyes, maybe I'll put my hand on my heart, and I'll just be like, what part is showing up right now with my eyes closed? Sometimes it's my anxious part. Sometimes it's the overachiever part. Sometimes it's the part that is the people pleaser and she wants to be deeply loved and accepted. And so I'll connect with that part and I'll have a little conversation with that part and I'll be like, what do you need right now? What are you trying to tell me? What's upsetting you and triggering you? And then in that moment when I talk to that part and be like, what do you need? I try to give that part what it actually needs. I will, and oftentimes it's very simple things. It'll be like, I need a nap. Like I need to just step away. I am exhausted and I need to go lie down for 20 minutes. Or maybe this part will be like, I need some love and maybe, I need a hug. So maybe I'll go hug my dog or I'll go hug a friend or I'll just, do something loving and nourishing for myself in this moment because that's what this part actually needs. And when you start to do these emotional check-ins with yourself, you start to form a very different relationship with your mind and with your brain. And you start to form a relationship of love instead of hate. Because what you start to see is that this overactive mind part, it's needing support in some sort of way. Maybe it just needs some love and attention. Maybe it just, wants you to rest. It's clearly giving you a sign that you need to be supported in some way. Not by binging Netflix, not by smoking marijuana or drinking alcohol or scrolling on TikTok. There's a deep desire and need that's coming out. And when you start to fulfill that desire and need, it completely changes the relationship that you have with your overactive mind and most importantly, with yourself. Daily habit number 3 that really helps to quiet an overactive mind is to be in integrity. What is integrity? Integrity means to keep the promises you make to yourself. So many of us wake up on an everyday basis. We put 100 things on our to-do list. We, tell ourselves that we're going to wake up and go work out, but then we don't. We tell ourselves we're going to eat healthy, but then we don't. And every single time you choose to not live in integrity, you are breaking your self-trust. And so many of us are anxious because we're not living in integrity. Our mind is constantly on overdrive and is overactive because we're placing too many things on our to-do list that we simply don't have the time for. And it doesn't mean that we need to be like, okay, I can't do everything. You can, but probably just not all in one day. You can't do your laundry and the dishes and the meal prep and then also do a whole bunch of work and then make sure you work out and all of these things all at once. The more things that you put on your to-do list and the less time that you have for it, the more that your mind is going to be overactive and just constantly thinking about all the things you have to do. I've seen that difference in myself, even in my own life. The days when I'm very realistic about everything that I have to get done, I feel way more calm and relaxed and my mind is way less overactive because I'm not stressing about all the things that I need to get done because I simply don't have time and space for it in my schedule. Like I'm already even just thinking about today and I have written 15 things on my list and I'm like, I need to go and check myself and fix that list because then I know I'm gonna be in a state of massive anxiety all day long and under so much stress and pressure. And then also the worst of it is that I'm gonna end the day feeling like I did nothing, feeling like I'm not good enough, feeling like that I'm a failure. And not because I actually am any of those things, it's just because I overestimated how much time there is actually in a day. And again, not to say you can't do it all, you can, but please start being realistic about how much you can actually get done in a day. So what I'll do is I'll actually go on my Google Calendar and I'll take the things from my to-do list and I'll actually put them on the Google Calendar to see how much time I have. And then when I put things on the Google Calendar, I'm just like, whoopsie, I thought I had way more time. And then I really don't have as much time as I think I do. And so when you can start to put this into practice and be in integrity, you're going to end the day just feeling so much better about yourself, because you're just like, wow, I actually got everything done. Instead of ending the day and just being like, oh, here's another day where I just didn't get things done. I guess I'm just not good enough. I guess I'm just a failure, or this just happens every single time. I'm just never going to achieve my goals, right? These are the thoughts that come and follow, and I've been there, done that. So master integrity, master keeping the promises you make to yourself. Master creating a realistic schedule and expectation of yourself as to what you can realistically do in a day. That on its own is going to quiet so much of your overactive mind, because now you're not going to be constantly stressing and thinking about everything that you need to get done for the day. Tip number 4 to quiet an overactive mind, this more so has to do with you optimizing and supporting your body. Because again, this isn't just mindset work. There are things happening in your body that also lead to an overactive mind. I could have actually said 2 things, but I'm going to stick to just one thing, which is the most important, is limit your caffeine intake. So many of us are drinking way too much coffee and caffeine during the day. And it doesn't matter how much you meditate, how much you try to quiet your mind, how much in integrity you are, how many emotional check-ins you do. If you are drinking excessive amounts of caffeine and your heart is like racing and ready to jump out of your chest, none of that stuff is going to work as well. I recently in my life did a switch from drinking coffee to drinking orange pekoe tea / matcha. And I've noticed such a big difference in my anxiety, in my stress levels, in my ability to just tolerate stress. I didn't realize before how much of like an irritable state I was in every single day because I was just drinking so much coffee and having so much caffeine. And it's not even so much. I was honestly drinking like 2 cups a day, but for me, that was just way too much. And so occasionally, once in a while, maybe I'll have a cup of coffee here or there, but really I just try to stick to lower caffeine beverages instead. And I've noticed such a big difference. Even right now, I'm having Tim Hortons steep tea. I know the steep tea can start to have caffeine amounts almost as close to coffee, but still, I still notice a big difference with it, and I still notice it affecting me way less, even when it comes to coffee. So coffee still definitely, even with my stomach, I notice a big difference now as well, because I noticed like before with drinking coffee, I would start to feel a little bit nauseous. My stomach would get irritated, even if I did have it after having food. And so overall, I'm a huge proponent and fan with those of us who have an overactive mind to either, if you want to be brave, you can completely cut caffeine out of your life. I did that for about 4 to 6 months a couple of years ago, and I did notice myself just being extremely calm. But did I lose a little bit of the drive to get stuff done? A little bit, I will say that. I did find that it was harder for me to just do the things that I didn't want to do because I didn't have that little bit of caffeine surging through my veins. So it's not to say you need to completely cut out caffeine. There's nothing wrong with it. And I'm not even saying you need to cut out coffee completely, but be mindful of your intake. Usually max maybe 1 to 2 cups, maybe just 1 cup, and the rest of the day you're opting for other caffeinated beverages like a steep tea, like a matcha instead. And most importantly, you really want to watch the time as to which you're consuming it. I usually recommend have all your caffeine before 12 to 1 p.m. I find that if we tend to have caffeine past that, it definitely affects our sleep. Before, I used to tell my patients 3 p.m. and before, but even I find that 3 p.m., because coffee can have a long half-life and it can take a while for our body to break it down. Usually like 1 p.m., you kind of want to make that last cutoff to have your caffeine, because beyond that, it can have a significant impact on your sleep. And then, let's be honest, when is our overactive mind the most overactive? Before bed. That's usually when I find people always telling me it's right before bed, I'm trying to fall asleep, and then my mind just won't stop. And that's because 1, you didn't give yourself any check-ins throughout the day, and 2, you probably didn't develop any sort of good routine, and things like your food and your caffeine intake and all that stuff is probably affecting and impacting your ability to have a good night's rest. So you really want to make sure you're limiting your caffeine intake, and just maybe you start off by observing. Observe how coffee makes you feel, and maybe have a day where you're just not drinking coffee at all and just see how that makes you feel. And if you're finding that overactive mind is just quieting naturally on its own because you've lowered your caffeine intake, that might be the push that you need to just really limit it. And to end it off, daily habit number 5 that really helps to quiet an overactive mind is to have so much kindness compassion, and grace for yourself. Want to know the only thing that makes an overactive mind like 10 times worse? Are the thoughts and things that you tell yourself about it. So many of us, when we experience this overactive mind, we tell ourselves, oh my God, why am I thinking this way? I hate this. I don't like this. I wish that this would stop. Why isn't my mind normal? What's wrong with my brain? And that on its own just perpetuates that overthinking mind, that overactive mind. It just makes it 100 times worse when you hate yourself for it. And again, guilty. I have been there, done that. So much of my life, I have spent hating myself. I've spent hating myself. I was bullied growing up. I went through a toxic relationship in high school, and just so many things happened to me in my life that just really shifted my perception of myself. And have spent a majority of my life hating myself. And it really hasn't been until the past few years where I've taken that relationship with my life into my own hands and completely shifted it to one that is full of compassion, kindness, and grace. I can confidently say now, I am my own best friend. And when I notice my mind starting to be overactive, instead of me telling myself, oh my God, I hate this, why does this happen? Here we go again. I hate my brain, da 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 da. I treat myself with so much kindness, compassion, and grace. And I literally say things like, I hear you. I know this sucks so much. This is really hard. It sucks to feel this way. I hate that this person thinks this about me. This is really sad. It's okay for me to feel sad. I give myself permission to. I'm so proud of myself for just moving through the situation in the best way that I can. I'm so proud of myself for just, handling it the way that I did. I'm so proud of myself for just being nice to myself through this and giving myself space to feel all of these emotions. I love myself. I'm going to be okay. How much more different is that? Where is the overactive mind going to go? How is the overactive mind going to even be overactive if you're speaking to yourself in such a kind, beautiful, and compassionate way? It's not. It is not. And so, as much as possible, you want to be kind to yourself. Kindness and compassion help us grow. Criticism keeps us stuck. I always remind my patients of this. The meaner you are to yourself, the less likely you are going to be to grow. Like, imagine if, a child isn't the best at math and you tell that child, yeah, you suck at math. You're horrible. You're awful. Nobody likes you because you suck at math. Do you think that child is ever going to like math? No. They're going to feel so discouraged from ever trying to pursue math again. And so that's the same analogy and approach that I want you to take with yourself. The meaner that you are to yourself, the more that you're going to keep yourself stuck in that spot. Versus if you tell yourself, like imagine that child again, right? You tell that child, that's okay, you got that mark. You can do better. You got this. You can learn. You can go ask the teacher questions and you can get better from this. How much more optimistic is that child going to be, and how much more hopeful are they going to be that they can actually go and make a change and difference, and they're going to go about doing that versus if they're told that they're horrible and no one likes them? The same thing goes for you. If you keep telling yourself that you hate your mind, your brain sucks, you suck, da da da, all these things, you're actually keeping yourself stuck more in that same spot versus approaching it with kindness and compassion. So there you have it. These are the habits that actually help you to quiet your overactive mind. And if you're interested in wanting to get that one-on-one support and really dive deeper into the root causes that are leading to your brain health struggles, like blood sugar dysregulation, poor gut health, liver health, nutrient deficiencies, hormonal dysfunctions, and wanting to talk about things like your limiting beliefs and really shifting that internal identity and image and how you view yourself, because we have to address that mindset root cause and body root cause together and get that holistic support to really help you feel your best inside and out. I would encourage you, use the link in the bio to apply to work with me. This is only on an application basis. You can click a time for a call that works best. I go through all of the responses individually, and if you are selected, I will reach out to you and your time will be approved, where we can then have a one-on-one call to see what your needs are and to see if support for you will be beneficial. So I hope that this was really helpful. And again, the best thing that you can do, pick one or two of these habits, be consistent with them, and just watch your brain completely transform.